I guess start off by telling me when you come into a fantasy world, it seems you're not just dealing with regular fabrics and cloth, but you're dealing with dragon skin and
Well, it's quite exciting actually to step off that place and be able to, a lot of times, create your own fabric and do screens on fabric that depict a certain texture and thing. And it's one of my favorite parts of the process is sort of what you can do with textiles before you even start the costume, like sourcing them and all kinds of things. Like my Black Army, they're under their chainmail and stuff they wear underneath is actually stretch action stuff with a silk screen of chainmail on the arms and a silk screen kind of pattern on the legs to depict like textured leather, but it's actually an action fabric. So coming up with all that stuff is a really fun, creative part of the process.
and this is of course a very action heavy movie, so you
Yeah.
have to make clothes that are mobile.
Yes, it's part of the challenge of doing a movie that, that people look good, but they can actually work in the clothes in a big way.
What was the biggest challenge for this?
Well, there's there's always a lot of challenges you undergo in a picture like this. There's the army, which was the first challenge, and then there's, creating two different courts, like an early kind of golden year court, and then the decayed court of the final queen and her kind of acolytes, and the huntsman's costume, which has to be something that's lived in the forest and that's all functional, that has to work day after day in the same way, and the dwarves, which are a whole other category, and Charlize's grand queen costumes, which are very, all handmade and labor intensive. So it's all different layers of stuff going on at once when you're doing a film like this.
It seems like stepping into Snow White, that there's so many visual cues that people have come to associate with Snow White over the years. How do you escape that, but also make it something that people won't feel completely out of place with?
Well, I think there's certain nods to the preconceived idea of Snow White. Like I just sort of did that little soft puff sleeve in her costume and totally changing it from what the expectation is into a suede costume over an underdress that I could distress and use, and I think the architecture of the Queen's crown is kind of that really pointed, kind of severe sort of thing that sort of harkens back to the kind of 50s Snow White. So I think there's things in it, and then it's just you move on. You don't think about it anymore. Once you get into it, you really don't worry about that at all.
At what point in your job now does special effects play a large role when it comes to costumes?
Special effects, when it comes to costumes in films like this, is mainly about replication. So it's not really part of my process. I usually make the things and then they make more, they multiply it. It's kind of like what we did in this. So say I have a court where we had 200 or 300 people in period costumes and they want the room to extend, to look like it goes on and on. They just take those people and tile them and stretch it out to look like 2,000 people.
When you take any of these outfits, where does it begin? Just with a sketch?
It begins with a sketch and fabrics, and sometimes I don't even sketch the costume. For me, my process really takes place on the stand, and I have an idea that I do a rough sketch for with the cutter, and we sort of start manipulating it on a stand and work it out from there. Because really, the difference between a costume on a piece of paper and a costume in the room is a huge difference. And it goes from being a two-dimensional object to three-dimensional. So for me, the most important thing for my costume realization is my cutters and my workroom who are able to